My father had always told me growing up to never open my eyes when it was a full moon. He claims that there was a spirit that lurked at night, preying on people who were awake past the witching hour. I never believed those silly stories he told me. I thought it was stupid. I never believed in urban legends. I really, really wished I did. It was May 26th, 2002. It was going to be a full moon tonight. I always loved staring up at the sky at night. The stars twinkling, the sounds of owls. It always gave me a sense of calming. But tonight, it would be much more different. I was sitting on the couch, watching a movie on the TV. I had a bowl of popcorn on my lap and was heavily invested in the movie. My father came into the living room, standing in front of the TV. "It's getting late, Kira," he said, crossing his arms. "It's nearly midnight. Please go to bed." He frowned. I rolled my eyes at this. I was still watching the movie. I wanted to finish it. "No, Dad. I'm watching a movie," I responded, leaning my body to try and see the screen. "Kira, listen. I told you many times what happens whenever you're awake this late." He stared at me. "I don't want it to hurt you." "Dad, come on. Are you serious?" I held back a chuckle. "There's no way you actually believe that." I smirked. His face faltered, and it contorted into a more agitated look. "I'm not going to ask you again, Kira. Go to bed," he insisted, narrowing his eyes. I rolled my eyes, turning the TV off. I put the bowl of popcorn on the coffee table, frowning. "Fine," I said, before turning around to walk up the stairs. I walked into my room and shut the door behind me. I was going to go back downstairs when he went to bed to continue my movie. After all, I did have to rent it from Blockbuster. I wasn't going to not watch it at all. Plus, it was a horror movie. I loved them, especially at night. So, whenever I heard my father's door shut, I waited for a minute. After I was sure he was asleep, I crept my way downstairs, heading for the living room. I made my way to the couch, sitting down. I turned the TV back on but made sure to turn the volume down to avoid it blaring and waking him up. I grabbed the bowl of popcorn I had left, placing it back on my lap. As I continued to watch the movie, I began to hear slight rustling outside. I looked to the window beside my front door, but assumed it was a raccoon and didn't get up. I turned back to the TV, slouching in my position. The rustling continued, but I ignored it still. Little guy must be digging through the trash. Not my problem. My dad would clean it up. I soon heard soft tapping on the window. It's just a month, I thought. A moth hitting against the window, trying to get towards the light. I ignored it once more. But the tapping persisted and only got louder. The movie eventually ended, and I got up to put the finished popcorn bowl in the sink. I walked into the kitchen, putting the bowl in the sink. I looked up to stare out the window and saw a face. A deformed human face. I stumbled back, my heart racing. The face was pale, almost translucent, with hollow, dark eyes that seemed to bore into my soul. Its mouth was twisted into a grotesque grin, revealing sharp, uneven teeth. For a moment, I was frozen, my mind struggling to process what I was seeing. Then, the face moved closer to the glass, and I could see its breath fogging up the window. It was real. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. I forced myself to look away, stumbling backward into the living room. My breathing was shallow and quick, my heart pounding so loudly it was all I could hear. I had to get to my dad. He'd know what to do. I turned to run up the stairs, but my foot caught on the air, sending me sprawling onto the floor. Pain shot up my leg, but I didn't care. I scrambled to my feet, but then I heard it, the front door creaking open. I whipped around, my eyes wide with terror. The door slowly inched open, the hinges groaning in protest. A cold draft blew in, chilling me to the bone. I took a step back, glancing toward the stairs, but it was too late. A figure slipped through the door, moving with an unnatural grace. It was the girl I saw in the window. She was inside the house. What do I do? Kira, the figure groaned, floating towards me as I froze in place. It slowly inched towards me, holding out a pale hand. It beckoned me, wanting me to come closer. It felt like I was in a trance. The world around me seemed to blur as I was drawn toward the figure. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my legs felt heavy, rooted to the spot. The spirit's eyes locked onto mine, and I could feel a strange pull, like it was reaching into my very soul. Kira, it groaned again, the voice chilling and ethereal, echoing in my mind. Sponsored content. Recommended by Born between 1956 to 1996. You can earn an extra income with companies. Start today with just $250. Ep8. Hamirpur, the price and size of these hearing aids might surprise you. Here.com. Will adding an in-ground pool in Los Angeles also add to my property tax bill? Will adding an in-ground pool in Los Angeles also add to my property tax bill? Mansion Global. I took a step towards it, and its grin widened. I don't know why I started walking towards it, but my body felt so light. I was drawn to it, like a moth to a flame. I took another step, my mind screaming at me to stop, but my body moved on its own. The spirit's grin widened, revealing more of those sharp, uneven teeth. A sense of dread washed over me, but I was powerless to resist. I now stood in front of whatever it was, and its eyes bore into my very being. Come with me, it whispered, its hand extended farther towards me. I raised my own, placing my hand on its cold, dead fingers. The chill spread through me, freezing my blood and numbing my senses. For a moment, the world seemed to fade away, and I was consumed by darkness. The spirit's hollow eyes glowed brighter, and its grin grew impossibly wide. Yes, Kira, it groaned, as it began to lead me out of the house. But before we could leave, a bright light flooded the room, breaking my trance. I was yanked backward, away from the spirit's grasp. I fell onto the floor, frozen in place. The spirit shrieked, recoiling from the light. It vanished into thin air, just like that. It left me spooked. What just happened? Kira, my father said, his voice shaking with relief. He knelt beside me, pulling me into a tight embrace. Are you okay? I nodded, still catching my breath. I'm fine. What was that? He helped me to my feet, his expression a mixture of relieved and grave. That was the spirit I warned you about. You should have listened. I shuddered, remembering its cold touch. I didn't believe you. I'm so sorry, Dad. He hugged me tighter. It's okay, Kira. The important thing is that you're safe now. But you have to listen to me from now on. These things, they're real, and they're dangerous. I nodded, the weight of his words sinking in. I will, Dad. I promise. He sighed, leading me towards the stairs. Let's get some sleep. We'll talk more about this in the morning. As we climbed the stairs, I couldn't help but glance back at the window. I was half expecting to see that terrifying face again. But there was nothing. Just the peaceful night outside, the full moon casting a gentle glow over everything. That night, I lay in bed, unable to sleep, the events of the night playing in my head. I shut my eyes, expelling a breath I didn't know I had pent up. It was still shocking for me. The spirit was real. It was real. My father's warnings were no longer stories I refused to listen to. It was a matter of life or whatever happens to someone who is whisked away by that thing. But sometimes I still hear that spirit's whisper and the small taps on my bedroom window, a cold hand on my shoulder sometimes. It wraps around my neck and I choke. There is a fresh, blank page sitting in front of me, and as I stare at it, it seems to stare back. It's always so hard to get started, I think. I just wish I could get over the hump without climbing the hill. I feel like Sisyphus. Every time I think I've gotten to the peak, I roll back down to the start. I put my pen to the pristine white page and pause, thinking, agonizing over what sort of approach I will take this time. Will I be too eager? Will I lose interest? Is it going to be long enough, short enough, authentic, or intelligent enough? Black ink has begun to pool where the pen's tip is still pressed to the paper, and I watch it soak in as any answers elude me. Still, there's no way to break the block other than to just start writing, directionless or otherwise. There is a girl, sitting in a room. And with that first phrase, the floodgates have opened. She is wearing a simple dress, blue with a floral print. The room around her is nondescript and familiar. There is no door or window. There is a bed frame and mattress, a side table, and a chair, which this girl occupies. Behind this chair there is a simple floor-length mirror, affixed to the wall. Above it, a clock, ticking quietly. Good start. She sits gingerly on the edge of the chair, as though ready to spring into action at the drop of a hat. Ripe with anxious energy, she keeps her back to the mirror behind her, as though it might jump up and bite her if she looks at it. Her foot is tapping, and she shifts and shuffles lightly in place. It seems like she is waiting for something. In a confined space with no entrance or exit, it is unclear what she is waiting for. She twists the hem of her skirt around and around her finger, trying to place how she got it when she last changed. To her, the dress feels old and familiar, and yet somehow untouched. She adjusts it, smooths the fabric, and then changes her mind and adjusts it again. I'm finally gaining a little bit of momentum. This feels good. The piece has direction. It feels like it's moving at a good pace, and the ink is beginning to shine a deep brown. Right on track. She looks around at the furniture in front of her, never daring to so much as glance back towards the mirror. While the room is static and quiet, her distress continues to mount. All at once, she springs up from her perch and crosses to the bed, hungry eyes hunting the area for something. She feels like she already checked, but she just has to go looking again. The bed is bare, stripped to the mattress. She pulls open the drawers of the side table and finds nothing. She knows this room must have been well furnished once, and yet has apparently been slowly stripped down to its current barren state. Nonetheless, she combs the room once more. The clock ticks on, and as she searches with her back still to the mirror, the hour hand inches towards 6, crawling closer. 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 The clock strikes 6. I take a moment to crack my knuckles and shake my head, but only a moment. The ink is getting fresher and fresher, and I don't want to waste a drop. A hollow, assertive tone sounds off. She freezes, halting her search. Goosebumps rise on her skin, every hair standing on end. Her breathing becomes shallow and rapid, and she will spend this next hour slightly lightheaded. Is something happening, an unseen threat activating some deep-rooted fight or flight response? Or has she done this to herself, imagining danger? The clock continues to chime, unconcerned with the panic it has caused. She sits back down on her chair, foot tapping wildly, head in hands as she tries and fails to steady her breathing. The clock ticks cheerfully away, and from her point of view seems to slip all too quickly towards 7. Anxiety has overwhelmed her, and it is all she can do not to faint. She stands again and crosses to the mattress, sitting gingerly on the edge. Craning her torso, twisting away from the mirror as fully as possible, she ponders her situation. Combing through her memories for a start, trying to recall what landed her in this strange experience. Racking her imagination for an end, trying to think of how she could escape that ticking clock, as well as the mirror. Nothing comes to her, and eventually she allows herself to lay down. The anxiety has drained her energy, and in spite of the unanswered questions circling her head, she is able to doze off. The clock strikes 7. She awakes with a start and is immediately racked with pain and discomfort. Her unfortunate breathing and the physical toll of this new hour have rendered her dizzy and confused, struggling to think